What if I told you there was an NBA player who was literally forbidden from shooting? That was Gary Payton II's reality. From a college career where his three-point percentage never even touched 30%, to NBA coaches flat out telling him not to shoot the ball, Payton lived with the humiliation of being labeled broken, a player without a jumper, someone not to be trusted with the simplest weapon in the game. And yet, instead of crumbling under that weight, instead of letting the doubt swallow him whole, Gary Payton II reinvented himself from the ground up. He rewired his game, sharpened his defense until he became a nightmare for opposing guards, found creative ways to score without relying on the jump shot, and slowly carved out a place in a league that had written him off. Then came the turning point. One coach lifted the ban, gave him the green light, and everything changed. The shot improved, the confidence came back, and the man once told never to shoot would become an NBA champion, locking up some of the biggest names in the sport. But to understand this story, you have to start at the very beginning. February 3rd, 1992, Seattle, Washington. Gary Payton Sr., one of the greatest defensive guards in NBA history, had just welcomed his first child with his partner Monique. They named him Gary Payton II. Imagine growing up in that shadow. Your father is a 9-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA First Team, selection, an NBA champion, a Hall of Famer nicknamed the Glove for his suffocating defense. Young Gary was surrounded by legends. Shawn Kemp, the high-flying dunker who shook rims and broke spirits. Later, LeBron James, whom his father crossed paths with at the twilight of his career. Greatness was everywhere. And for a kid who didn't want to be little Gary, the pressure was enormous. So much so that he refused to even go by Gary. He preferred his middle name, Dwayne, just to avoid the constant comparisons. Gary Sr. himself avoided playing his son one-on-one, afraid he'd crush his spirit. The legend didn't want to see his boy quit before he even started, and for a long time, it looked like he might. Gary Payton II wasn't a high school phenom. He didn't dominate AAU circuits. He was a late bloomer, someone who took basketball seriously only in his senior year at Spring Valley High in Las Vegas. There, with the guidance of a family friend known as Peanut, he started to hone his natural gifts. But there was still a long road ahead. School wasn't easy for him. Payton suffered from dyslexia, a learning disorder that made academics a struggle. Despite attention from Division I programs, his grades didn't qualify. He had to take the detour. First came Westwind Prep in Arizona, but the NCAA flagged the school as illegitimate, erasing his progress. His dreams of Division I were pushed even further out of reach. Instead of heading to a big-time college, Gary Payton II had to grind it out at Salt Lake Community College in Utah. By then, he had only been serious about the game for about a year. Could he really make it? The answer was yes. In his sophomore season, GP2 began to shine. He averaged nearly 14 points, almost 8 rebounds, close to 2 steals per game. As a 6'2" guard, his rebounding stood out, his energy relentless. He led Salt Lake to conference titles, earned Player of the Year, tournament MVP. Suddenly, the overlooked kid was a rising name in junior college basketball. But the biggest step was yet to come. He earned a scholarship to Oregon State, his father's alma mater. The stage was finally set. December 14th, 2014, Grambling State versus Oregon State. Payton records 10 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, and 6 steals. A triple-double. Only the second in Oregon State history. The first belonged to his father. The comparisons were impossible to avoid. Like his dad, Gary was a defensive mastermind. He could swallow up opponents with his length and instincts. But unlike his father, he had explosiveness from his mother's side, giving him a vertical pop that made him a highlight machine. He even set a single-game block record at Oregon State for guards, swatting 7 shots in one contest. His 2 seasons there were filled with steals, blocks, dunks, and relentless hustle. He was a 2-time Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, and yet NBA scouts weren't convinced. They pointed to the turnovers, the shaky point guard skills, and most of all, the shooting. 29% from deep as a junior, 31% as a senior. The form looked okay, but the results never came. He could dunk on anyone, strip the ball from anyone, defend 1 through 3, but in a league obsessed with spacing, could a guard who couldn't shoot survive? The answer in 2016 was no. Draft night came and went, and Gary Payton II wasn't selected. He caught on with the Houston Rockets but quickly struggled in Summer League. Opponents ignored him on the perimeter, clogging the paint, daring him to shoot. By the time the season began, Houston cut him. It was the start of a painful cycle. Training camp invites, G League stints, 10-day contracts, more cuts. At one point, the Milwaukee Bucks gave him strict orders. Don't shoot. Imagine that. An NBA guard told to pass up wide-open looks. It became his label. Non-shooter. Liability. But GP2 refused to quit. In the G League, he worked relentlessly. He had nights where he exploded for 30-plus points, even once dropping 51 with 7 made threes. He showed flashes of what he could be if given trust. The problem was, when NBA coaches looked at him, they didn't see potential. They saw the flaws. He bounced to the Lakers, back to the G League, then the Wizards, back to the G League again. Each time he flashed defense, energy, hustle. Each time he got cut. Years passed. He won a G League championship with Rio Grande, earned Defensive Player of the Year honors, locked up opponents in highlight reels. But still, the NBA seemed done with him, until one team saw something nobody else did, the Golden State Warriors. Bob Myers, their GM, had a philosophy. Don't focus on what players can't do. Focus on what they can. And Gary could defend like almost no one else. The Warriors signed him on a 10-day contract in 2021. In his first real minutes, he racked up steals, threw down dunks, brought the same energy he'd shown in the G League. The deal expired. But Golden State saw the fit. They kept him on a non-guaranteed contract. He had to fight for a roster spot against veteran Avery Bradley, and he won. Steve Kerr then made the bold move that changed everything. Instead of hiding GP2's weaknesses, he weaponized his strengths. On offense, Payton became a screener, slipping to the rim while defenses were locked on Curry and Clay. On defense, he was unleashed like a pit bull, hounding ball handlers, disrupting passing lanes. And for the first time in his career, he was told, shoot if you're open. The confidence grew. He hit threes at a 41% clip. He dunked over 7-footers. He became a vital role player on a championship team. In the 2022 playoffs, he locked down stars like Ja Morant, picking him up full court. He hit clutch shots against Denver, threw down momentum-swinging dunks against Memphis. When he broke his elbow on a flagrant foul, it looked like his run was over. But he fought back, returned in the finals, and helped Golden State capture the title. The man once forbidden from shooting was now an NBA champion. Even after injuries slowed him in Portland, even after more setbacks, his journey remains one of the most inspiring in the league. Because Gary Payton II's career isn't just about basketball, it's about resilience, about refusing to be defined by what you can't do. He turned rejection into motivation, turned defense into his art form, and carved his name into NBA history. For kids who struggle with learning disabilities like dyslexia, for players who aren't perfect shooters, his story is proof that there's always another way to succeed. From undrafted to unwanted, from G League lifer to NBA champion, Gary Payton II proved that even when the world says don't shoot, you can still find your shot.